and welcome to SVG TV News for Tuesday, August 30th, 2022. I am Yvette Boynes with the details. The Money Services Business Act 2022 was passed in the House of Parliament today as government moves to update the regulatory framework for operations in the microfinance commercial industry. Minister of Finance Camilo Gonzalez tabled the bill where he says international agencies have noted what they describe as soft regulations in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which raises concerns about money laundering and the funding of terrorist activities. Minister Gonzalez says the amendments will tighten the regulations for the 5 microfinance institutions operating in SVG, namely Courts, Fast Cash, Quick Cash, Advanced Cash, and Cashways.
First, it can provide some legitimacy to the business operations of the companies that carry on their services and can promote a stable expansion of the industry while protecting consumers. Second, it can ensure the viability of the industry and encourage the relevant entities to operate efficiently and promote fair market pricing, particularly in relation to issues such as onerous contractual terms, excessive interest rates, and over-indebtedness. And third, to streamline the operation of the microfinance institutions in conformity with international best practices. It's important to note, Madam Speaker, that the International Monetary Fund, in its detailed assessment report issued in 2010, after they made some examinations in 2009 in St. Vincent and the Grenadines of our anti-money laundering regime, noted the following deficiencies in their Financial Action Task Force recommendations of the time, recommendations 23 and 29. They said that there are no powers or mechanisms to supervise, inspect, or enforce anti-money laundering compliance with respect to some of these money lending operations. And they said that we should review, if necessary, implement an authorization and supervisory regime for money lending businesses that are covered by anti-money laundering laws.
The Finance Minister says mobile payment service businesses such as PaySwift and Squeeze Cash welcome the amendments to the legislation as they have encountered challenges with operations due to lack of regulation.
The existing mobile providers, mobile payment service providers, are actually quite eager for the regulatory oversight that we are proposing in this legislation, because they have been disconnected from their partner banking institutions because of the lack of regulation. So the banks, ever cautious, ever concerned about money laundering and terrorist financing, have said to some of these mobile payment providers, listen, we can't do business with you anymore. You're too big, you're drawing too much attention, and you're not regulated. We don't know where the money coming from, we don't know where the money going. And so the reluctance of banks here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines to deal with some of these mobile service providers has constrained their business. And so this is not, in the context of the mobile service providers, this is not something that they are pushing back against. This is a level of regulation that they are welcoming because they think that it will expand their opportunities to do business and increase their offerings here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
The amendments also address concerns about the premises where money transmission businesses such as Western Union and MoneyGram operate, and Minister Gonzalez reveals there will be requirements set in place for where these businesses are allowed to set up shop.
There are customer service reasons, there are comfort reasons, there are also security reasons, because you don't want people in situations coming in and out of places that are susceptible to crime, for example, if the criminal knows that they have money in their pocket. And the amendments include provisions which would require approval by the FSA of the chosen place of business for these entities, and draft guidelines have been prepared, which would provide guidance on the adequacy of the place of business of these types of institutions.
Meanwhile, in her contribution to the debate on the Money Services Business Amendment Act 2022, Opposition Senator Siobhan John says the changes to the regulations can open the way for young persons who wish to enter the microfinance industry.
And we know, for example, Pay Swift and Squeeze Cash has been up and running, but they had to discontinue some operations. And there they are, young people, you know, very much wondering now, what next do we have to do? How much more do we have to, how much more pain do we have to feel in becoming entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs? And they may look at this environment as one which works against them. So I am happy today that we have these amendments which will assist these young people in getting their businesses properly and successfully in operations.
For the mobile payment providers, Senator John says she hopes local banks will allow for the ease of doing business.
All this, what one is looking for is a swift way of getting their transactions done, and also at a cheap cost. So I am hoping that when this comes to be a bill, when this comes to be the act, from the act to the bill, and it is enacted, that the banks will work closely with our mobile payment service providers so that they can now feel that their cards can be processed and that their e-commerce operations can run successfully.
Alston Beckett Cyrus of St. Vincent and the Grenadines will be honored with a Doctor of Letters from the University of the West Indies for his work as a soca artist and composer. A release from the university notes the legendary calypsonian and composer has fostered an illustrious 30-year career with 21 albums and the numerous award-winning singles to his credit, and through his achievements and distinguished musicianship, Beckett has earned his title as the ABC of Calypso. Cyrus is one of 16 outstanding global citizens who the University of the West Indies will welcome to its graduation stage this year. The honorary graduates, recognized for their contributions to several areas, including sports, culture, law, business, and science, will join the 2022 graduating class in person this year as a majority of campuses return to face-to-face ceremonies. However, the University of the West Indies Open Campus will retain the hosting of a virtual graduation ceremony. This year's honorary graduates join the ranks of a prestigious list of fewer than 500 persons who have been awarded since 1985. Psychologist Dr. Alyssa Alvis says there is a culture of silence against gender-based violence in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and she is calling on persons to speak out against it. She delivered remarks at the Seventh-day Adventist March and Rally on Sunday against gender-based violence in SVG. Dr. Alvis says homes are no longer a safe place for women and children.
Women are more likely to be killed by someone they know.
True.
Their husband, their boyfriend, their partner. Pregnancy also represents a particularly vulnerable time for women. 1 in 4 women worldwide is abused while pregnant, and many women report that abuse started or escalated while they were pregnant. 63% of all women who are murdered by an intimate partner. And murder is the leading cause of death of pregnant and postpartum women. That accounts for 31% of all maternal deaths. So just to understand the scope across the entirety of our world. So this isn't just a Vincentian problem, it's a global problem. In terms of what it looks like in our region and in our country, we have a culture of silence around gender-based abuse and violence. And that silence is driven by shame, by fear, And that affects our reporting rates and even the data that we have about how big the problem is.
Dr. Alvis outlines ways in which persons can eliminate gender-based violence in SVG.
Example, our cultural tolerance of sexual infidelity among men. The assumption that hostility and aggression are an acceptable part of masculinity. Or the persistence of the belief that women and girls bring trouble onto themselves because of how they dress or how they behave. This creates environments where discrepancies of power can flourish, and where violence toward women and children doesn't just go unpunished, it's normalized. So within the social institutions that we spend our lives in, there are many people who have power over others and who are tasked with making decisions over those people's lives. And those persons may be functioning with these unequal ideas, with these gender unbalanced ideas. So in order to eliminate gender-based violence, we have to question those beliefs from those persons and also within ourselves. Because we have to accept that we may be contributing to the circumstances that make such violence possible.
The upcoming wildlife hunting season, which runs from October to February, will most likely remain closed as Director of Forestries notes the population of wildlife has still not improved even 1 year after the eruption of La Soufrière volcano. Speaking on radio on Monday, the Director of Forestry, Fitzgerald Providence, says the Forestry Division will soon provide further updates on the wildlife situation.
We have been observing out there, and we've been relating to the communities that we're still not seeing healthy populations in the forest. As I said, the impact of the volcanic eruption on the forest and on the wildlife species, as I said, it would have been impacted similar to us as humans. And when we initially were doing our surveys, that's why we had to close the 2021-22 season. We weren't seeing healthy wildlife populations. We were actually seeing a lot of mongoose. Mongoose are what we describe as vermin. They were imported, and they're actually dangerous for the environment in terms of the conflict with eating wildlife, and also they can actually eat some domestic fowl, chickens and so on that persons have. So we are still monitoring and concerned, and would advise on the season. We know some persons would maybe seeing a lot of wildlife around their homes, and this is what we call the edge effect. The animals have moved out to where there's more food or more abundance, which is where safer zones. But we are not seeing as much back in the forest.
Providence says an extensive hunting season can affect the movement of wildlife species into the forest. He adds the ministry wants to ensure that there is a stable and sustainable population of wildlife species.
And we'd like them to move back in the forest. So if you have an intensive hunting season, it may impact on that. So we looking at process of advising, maybe also have a discussion with the community, the hunters out there, in terms of what do they think. My officers have been already doing that, and Mona said the hunters are concerned that maybe we should not open the season for 2022-23. Maybe it should be a shorter season, and these are we're going to advise so that the decision can be made at the policy level in terms of if we have another hunting season for 2022-23 hunting season.
The open season for hunters runs yearly from October 1st to January 31st for reptiles and mammals, and October 1st to February 28th for birds. As the countdown continues to the 2022 Miss SVG pageant slated for October 29th, last Saturday evening, 8 of this year's contestants, along with reigning Miss SVG 2019 Sharika Rodney, showcased their signature walks on the Queen's runway. The first ever Miss SVG fashion show was a sold-out event and saw many Vincentians braving the weather to sit poolside at the sunset shows for a night of fashion. The delegates and reigning Miss SVG 2019 made appearances in 5 segments: Summertime Fine, Posh Meets Luxury Resort, Solids Meet Patterns, Corporate, and A Night of Elegance. The fashion show gave local designers an opportunity to showcase their work and provide the platform for the contestants to present themselves to the public offstage and without the pressure of being in a judged setting. The runway show featured designs from Afika Shallow of Official Designs, Sharnicia Mayers of Atelier Sharnicia, Chantel Dells of Shade, Kimon Batiste of Chimisticlo, Owen Paul of Owen Paul Couture, Ronicia Andrews of RC Creations, Solange Fernandez of Solange Couture, Unique Currency of Unique Fashions, and Shanice Hendrickson of Rain du Chic in 4 of the segments. All designs in the corporate segments came from Kimsha Williams of KMK Fashions. The contestants vying for the national title are Pallavi Brown, Miss Play 4, Raquel Coombs, Miss In Transit Export, Shana John, Miss Serco, Shadin McLean, Miss Devin, Ariel Oliver, Miss St. Vincent Brewery Limited, Shania Peters, Miss Flo, Jada Ross, Miss Lotto, and Tanik Swift, Miss Massey Stores Limited. A new queen will be crowned on October 29th at the Royal Return. The theme for the 2022 Miss SVG pageant, which was announced on Saturday night by Chair of the SVG Beauty Shows Committee, Avia Charles, who teased of a new venue for the show. Knowledge of musical theory, musical instruments, and discipline was passed on to 120 children who attended the SVG Police Force Police Band 6-week summer program. The Police Band summer program began on July 18th and officially closed on Saturday, August 27th. Speaking at the closing ceremony, band leader Inspector Vaughn Miller encouraged the children to continue playing and developing their skills.
To you, the kids, as you leave this compound and you depart from our program and you head back to school, I want to encourage you all to continue practicing your instruments. Those of you who have instruments, I want to encourage you all to continue practicing. As during the program, I saw a few parents bought new instruments for their kids. I saw a trumpet, guitar, and keyboard. So I want to encourage you all, those of you who have instruments at home, to continue practicing. As you head back to school, I want you all to be focused, to stay focused. And as the team of our program this year, feeling the positive.
The Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force Commissioner of Police Colin John thanked the instructor for imparting knowledge to the children. He also urged the children to continue the journey of becoming productive members of society.
And I am happy that you made good use of your time. This program is very well sought after, and I am really happy when we can impart or we can impact the lives of students or young people in a very positive manner. We are happy to have you here. We know that there are persons out there who have less than noble intentions, and they would want to use children or utilize their services for issues such as committing crime and things of that nature. And we are glad that you didn't choose that path, but you chose to be here with us, and you have learned, we have given you the tools to have a lifelong skill.